Let's look at another popular interview question. You want to write a method to capitalize the first letter of every word in a sentence. So let's add a new method, public static string capitalize. We give it a string parameter called sentence. Now the first thing we should do here is to break up this sentence into multiple words. So just like before, we call sentence.split by a white space. Then we get the result and store it in a string array called words. Now we need to iterate over this array and capitalize each word. That is easy. So let's add a for loop here for I equal to 0. As long as it's less than words.length, we increment it. Now, how can we capitalize each word? Well, first we get the current word, so that is words of I. From here, we get the first letter of this word by calling substring of 0 and 1. So we start at index 0 and get only a single character, okay? Now we want to convert this to uppercase, so we call to uppercase. Next, we should concatenate this with the other characters in lowercase. So once again, we get the current word, words of I, and from here we call substring of 1. This will return all the characters starting from index 1. Now we want to make sure these characters are in lowercase, so we call to lowercase. So using this expression, we can capitalize the first letter of every word. Now we should set words of I to this expression. So we are modifying each item in this array, okay? Finally, we need to combine all these words into a string. So we call string.join. We pass a white space as the delimiter and the array of words, and then return the result. Now let's test our implementation. So here in the main class, we call string utils that capitalize. Let's say today is a great day. So I'm passing a sentence with all characters in lowercase. Let's test this. We get the result and print it on the console. Okay, this is working. Now, what if you pass a sentence with all characters in uppercase? So today is a great day. This is also working beautiful. What if you have a few white spaces at the beginning of this sentence? Our program crashed. So to fix this, before splitting the string, we have to get rid of all the extra white spaces at the beginning or the end of this sentence. And we can do that by calling the trim method. Let's try it one more time. There you go. What if you have a few white spaces at the end of the string? I believe it should work, but let's just verify it. There you go. What if you have a few extra white spaces in between these words? We got an exception. Now, to solve this problem, we need to replace all the extra white spaces with a single white space. So after we get rid of the white spaces at the beginning or end of this string, we call replace all. And here we can pass a regular expression as a search pattern. In case you're not familiar with regular expressions, they're basically special strings that define search patterns. Let me show you. First, I'm going to break up this statement into multiple lines so you can see clearly. That's better. So here we call replace all. As the first argument, we pass a string like this. Here we have a white space followed by a plus sign. This plus sign you see here has a special meaning in regular expressions. That means the character before, in this case white space, should appear one or more times. So wherever in this string where we have one or more white spaces, we want to replace that part with a single white space. So a single white space, okay? Now there is more to regular expressions than we can cover in this video. I'm going to cover it in detail in my upcoming Advanced Java course. So if you want to learn about them, which you should because they're very powerful, take my upcoming Advanced Java course. Now let's run the program one more time. There you go. All those extra white spaces are gone. What if we pass a string with only white spaces? Let's see what happens. Our program crashed. Here's the reason. After we do all this processing, we'll end up with an empty string. Now in Java, when we split an empty string, we'll end up with an array of one item. Let me show you. So I'm going to put a breakpoint on this line and run the program using debugger. All right. So look, our words array has a single item. What do we have here? An empty string. So if we have an empty string and split it by a white space, we'll end up with an array of one item. And this is the reason why we get an exception on this line, because that item in our words array is an empty string, so we cannot substring it by one character. Okay? Now, to solve this problem, before we do any of this processing, we need to check to see if the string will be an empty string after we trim it. So if sentence.trim is empty, then we're going to return an empty string. Now let's run the program one more time. The exception is gone. Beautiful. Now, what if we pass an empty string? Obviously, this should work, but let's verify. There you go. And finally, what if we pass null? We get a null pointer exception. So before we call the trim method on the sentence, we should check for null. So if sentence is null or it's an empty string, then we're going to return an empty string. Take a look. There you go. So the problem is gone. So this is how we capitalize the first letter of every word in a sentence.